Guide to using this aerial photo CD of Gettysburg National Park. Each photo is presented twice. View 1 is the full-sized image with no interpretive text or graphics added. View 2 is identical to the first image but contains both interpretive text and added graphics. July 1st, 1863, Gettysburg, the first day. On the morning of July 1st, 1863, two Confederate brigades of infantry, commanded by Brigadier Generals James J. Archer and Joseph R. Davis, of Major General Henry Heath's division, of Lieutenant General Ambrose Powell Hill's 3rd Corps, approached Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, from the west on the Chambersburg Pike. Chief Signal Officer Lieutenant Aaron Jerome reported that Union General John Buford used the cupola of the old dorm building at the Lutheran Theological Seminary to observe the Confederates as they approached Gettysburg. The cupola was also used as a signal station by the Army of North Virginia. General Buford deployed 2 brigades of dismounted cavalry under the command of Colonels Thomas C. Devon and William Gamble along McPherson's Ridge to meet the Confederate threat. Devon's brigade was positioned to the right of Gamble's brigade and covered the approaches north of town. During the morning action, Major General John F. Reynolds arrived on the field with Brigadier General James S. Wadsworth's 1st Division. Reynolds ordered brigades commanded by Generals Lysander Cutler and Solomon Meredith to relieve Buford's cavalry on McPherson's Ridge. Shortly after issuing these orders, Reynolds fell from his horse, killed instantly by a rebel bullet. The railroad cut. Davis's brigade moved south in the direction of the Chambersburg Pike, but they were driven back by the spirited charge of 3 Union regiments. Many of Davis's men unwisely sought refuge in a nearby unfinished railroad cut, which resulted in the capture of nearly 200 Confederate prisoners. As a result of the morning action, both armies now rushed every available unit in the direction of Gettysburg. From the west came the remainder of Hill's Corps on the Chambersburg Pike. Major General Robert E. Rhodes of Lieutenant General Richard S. Ewell's 2nd Corps arrived from the north and placed his division on Oak Hill. The Union also received reinforcement. The 1st Corps' division of Brigadier General John C. Robinson arrived on Oak Ridge, and Major General Oliver O. Howard's 11th Corps took up position east of Robinson. Rhodes assaulted the Union forces on Oak Ridge as Heath renewed his attack on the 1st Corps at McPherson's Ridge. Confederate Major General Jubal Early arrived via the Harrisburg Road and joined Rhodes in the attack on the Union right flank. Early and Rhodes assaulted the divisions of Union commanders Major General Carl Schurz and Brigadier General Francis C. Barlow, who defended the Federal right flank. The rebels attacked from multiple sides, creating overlapping fields of fire which caused great damage. Late in the afternoon, the Union line broke under the pressure of the Confederate assault, and the men of the 1st and 11th Corps retreated through the streets of Gettysburg in the direction of Cemetery Hill. July 2nd, 1863, Gettysburg, the 2nd day. By the morning of July 2nd, Union Commander Major General George G. Meade's force was anchored on the right at Culp's Hill. The line then curved around Cemetery Hill and ran southward following Cemetery Ridge. General Meade ordered Major General Daniel E. Sickles to place his 3rd Corps in line and to the left of Major General Winfield Scott Hancock's 2nd Corps on Cemetery Ridge. A.P. Hill's Confederate Corps was in position on Seminary Ridge, and Lieutenant General James Longstreet was approaching from the west on the Fairfield and Black Horse Tavern roads with 2 divisions from his 1st Corps. Ewell's Corps opposed the right flank of the Federal line, which occupied Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill. Robert E. Lee ordered General Longstreet to assault the far left flank of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge. After some confusion in the direction of his march, General Longstreet moved 2 divisions commanded by Major Generals Lafayette McLaws and John Bell Hood into position on Warfield Ridge. The plan called for Longstreet to move parallel to the Emmitsburg Road, attacking the exposed and vulnerable end of Meade's position. It was nearly 4 p.m. when Longstreet's men moved out of the tree line on Warfield Ridge in preparation for the assault. What he found was Union infantry and artillery blocking his planned route of attack. Without orders from Meade, Sickles had moved his 3rd Corps forward nearly 3/4 of a mile from its assigned position on Cemetery Ridge to what he considered to be better ground. After a 30-minute artillery barrage, Major General John Bell Hood's men moved out in search of the end of the Union line. Hood's orders were to cross the Emmitsburg Road, wheel left, and follow the road holding his left flank to it. Minutes after the attack began, Hood was seriously wounded and taken from the field, which greatly disrupted Confederate command and control. In an effort to find the end of the Union left flank, the brigades of Brigadier Generals Jerome B. Robertson and Evander M. Law moved further east than the original plan of attack had called for. General Sickles' repositioning of his forces meant that the 3rd Corps defended a line running all the way from the Emmitsburg Road to Devil's Den. The far left of the 3rd Corps flank was defended by Brigadier General John H. Hobart Ward's brigade of Major General David B. Birney's division. Law and Robertson's brigades attacked Ward's position at Devil's Den. They also moved up Big Round Top and advanced into the Plum Run Valley, which is located between Devil's Den and Big Round Top. As the wing of General Hood's infantry assaulted the left flank of the Federal position near Devil's Den, the 2nd wave of his division initiated an attack on the Union infantry in place at the southern edge of the wheat field. As the fighting became more widespread, General Longstreet threw General McLaws into the fight against the Union positions extending from the Rose Farm to the Peach Orchard. Hood's remaining brigades, commanded by Brigadier General Henry L. Benning and George T. Anderson, joined the attack on Houck's Ridge and exploited a gap in the Federal line near the wheat field. Seeing that Hood's men were in need of reinforcement, Longstreet ordered McLaw's division to join the attack. On the north end of the field, the rebels assaulted General Charles K. Graham's brigade at the Sherfy Peach Orchard and advanced on Stony Hill. To the south, the rebels made their way through the Rosewoods, advancing in the direction of the wheat field and Houck's Ridge. The Union defenders at the Peach Orchard, Wheatfield, and the Stony Hill succumbed to the pressure of the new Confederate assault and were forced to fall back. General Sickles was wounded in the leg by a cannonball during the withdrawal and was reportedly carried from the field while calmly smoking a cigar. The The wheat field was the scene of tremendous conflict on the afternoon of July 2nd, and control of it changed hands numerous times between 5:30 p.m. and nightfall. By the end of July 2nd, Longstreet's men had driven the Federal forces from Houck's Ridge and carried all the ground west of the Plum Run Valley, including Devil's Den, the wheat field, and the peach orchard. However, their attacks failed to carry the Round Tops, leaving the Union in possession of the crucial high ground. At about 6 p.m., Major General Richard H. Anderson's division from Hill's Corps attacked the Federal forces along the Emmitsburg Road from the Trossel Lane to the Bryan Barn. Initially, the attack made progress since Meade had been forced to use units from this area to reinforce Sickles' 3rd Corps on the left flank. Brigadier General Ambrose Wright's Georgia Brigade crossed the Emmitsburg Road, overwhelmed 2 Federal regiments, and captured the guns of 2 batteries before being pushed back. Wright's after-action report stated that he had reached the crest of Cemetery Ridge and went beyond it. Whether Wright actually made it that far has been questioned, but it is known that he reported to Robert E. Lee in great detail the condition of the Union defenses on Cemetery Ridge. The 1st Minnesota. Brigadier General Cadmus M. Wilcox of Anderson's division moved toward a gap in the Union line with his Alabama Brigade. Hancock observed the advance by Wilcox and ordered the only available troops, the 1st Minnesota Regiment, commanded by Colonel William Colville, to attack the advancing rebels. In an uncommon act of valor, the Minnesotans, who were outnumbered 4-1, charged the Confederates and halted their progress. They paid a terrible price for their bravery. Only 47 men out of 262 returned from the charge. The final Confederate attack to take place on July 2nd was directed at Cemetery and Culp's Hills. Major General Henry W. Slocum's 12th Corps occupied Culp's Hill on the morning of July 2nd and had built defensive breastworks around its crest. In the afternoon, Meade withdrew nearly all of Slocum's men to reinforce Sickles' 3rd Corps, which left only a single brigade commanded by Brigadier General George S. Greene to defend the hill. At around 7 p.m., Major General Edward Johnson attacked with 3 brigades along the eastern portion of the Union position. The Confederates were able to achieve some success, but good fortifications and timely reinforcement enabled the Union to hold on to the high ground on Culp's Hill. Shortly after the assault began on Culp's Hill, Ewell ordered 2 brigades commanded by Brigadier General Harry T. Hayes and Colonel Isaac E. Avery to attack Cemetery Hill. 2 Union brigades commanded by Colonels Andrew L. Harris and Leopold von Gilsa were in position behind a stone wall at the base of the hill. An untimely repositioning of troops left a gap in the Federal line, which the Confederates exploited. Colonel Charles S. Wainwright's Union artillerymen engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the attacking rebels until reinforcements arrived to help repulse the invaders. July 3, 1863, Gettysburg, the 3rd day. At dawn on July 3, Federal artillery began firing at Confederate-held positions on and around Culp's Hill in preparation for an attack. Before the Union assault could get underway, Ewell launched his own attack. The fighting raged for more than 6 hours, causing hundreds of casualties, but little change in the battle lines. By July 3rd, General Lee felt that the middle portion of the Union line on Cemetery Ridge had to be the weak point. He ordered Longstreet to plan a massive frontal assault using elements of 4 divisions. The attack was preceded by an artillery barrage designed to wipe out Union resistance on the ridge. The Confederates assembled approximately 150 guns positioned from the peach orchard to the McMillan Woods, and at around 1 p.m. the guns began firing and kept up a constant barrage for nearly 2 hours. The Confederate gunners did their best to destroy the artillery and infantry in position on Cemetery Ridge, but after firing commenced, smoke obscured the battlefield, making it impossible for rebel artillerymen to see. Many of their shells went high over the ridge, missing their intended targets. Union artillery responded in kind to the shelling until Brigadier General Henry J. Hunt ordered his gunners to cease fire in order to conserve ammunition. The lack of Union return fire led the Confederates to believe they had disabled most of the Federal guns. At around 3 p.m., the artillery ceased fire and some 12,500 Confederate infantry moved out from protective cover on Seminary Ridge and formed up for an assault. Pettigrew's and Trimble's route took them over a nearly flat area of the field, and this exposed them to murderous artillery and small arms fire from the outset. Unexpected enfilading small arms fire from the 8th Ohio Regiment, which had moved out and to the right of the main Union line, also took its toll. Pickett's division had to wheel left as it crossed the Emmitsburg Road, exposing its flank to enfilading enemy fire. 2 regiments of Vermont infantry under the command of Brigadier General George J. Standard moved forward and wheeled right, which enabled them to pour concentrated rifle fire into the Confederates' flank. The forces on the Confederate left stormed the Union defenses north of the Angle, but were brutally repulsed. Only a handful of the advancing rebels would breach the Union line before being overwhelmed by Federal infantry. Today, a monument near the copse of trees marks the furthest penetration made by Lee's army, and it is appropriately inscribed the high watermark of the Confederacy. Located 3.5 miles east of Gettysburg is the East Cavalry Battlefield. Lee had ordered Cavalry Commander Major General Jeb Stuart to intercept any Federal cavalry that might interfere with the planned July 3 attacks. Brigadier General David M. Gregg's cavalry was positioned along the Hanover Road and engaged Stuart at about 1 p.m. The ensuing conflict was tactically inconclusive, but Brigadier General George Armstrong Custer gained tremendous personal fame for his heroic actions during the fight. The last major engagement to take place at Gettysburg on July 3 was fought on the south end of the battlefield near the Bushman Slider Farms. Having received orders from Major General Alfred Pleasanton to attack the right flank of the Confederate line if possible, Brigadier General Judson Kilpatrick moved his 3rd Division into position to comply with the order. Observing the incredibly costly failure of Pickett's charge, Kilpatrick reasoned that the rebels might be near their end, and he mistakenly determined that they were in retreat. He issued an order for Brigadier General Wesley Merritt's troopers to dismount and attack the Confederates on their front west of the Emmitsburg Road. He then issued orders for Brigadier General Elon John Farnsworth to make a mounted assault against the other end of the Confederate line. Upon receiving this order, General Farnsworth rode to Kilpatrick and requested clarification. He inquired of him, "General, do you mean it? These men are too good to kill." Kilpatrick refused to reconsider his decision, and Farnsworth rode off to carry out the order to make a mounted assault against dug-in veteran Confederate infantry supported by artillery. The charge was brutally repulsed by the rebels, and Farnsworth, along with many of his men, was killed. The apparent disregard Kilpatrick had for the men's lives during the war earned him the dubious nickname of Kill Cavalry.